So let's talk about the expectation for Microsoft and Google's or Alphabet's earnings today. So for those that are unaware, I will be live streaming the earning report for Microsoft and for Google. If you guys want to tune on into those live streams, all you literally have to do is subscribe to the channel and I'll keep you guys up to date. So it's very simple. I'm just going to give you guys the expectation, and obviously if they report above or below, that's how most likely the stock will react, right? So if they come in below expectation, obviously it makes sense on why it can sell off. If they come above expectation, it makes sense on why they can break above, but it's not always that easy or that black and white. A big part of earning reports, just so you guys are aware, are also, the guidance. So these earning reports are going to come right when the market closes, probably like 5 or 10 minutes after the market's going to react. I'm going to be live streaming that here on my channel. The second part is the guidance call. That normally happens about 1 to an hour and a half out. So 1 hour to 1 hour and a half after the earning reports come out. And they pretty much talk about their previous quarter and then their up and coming quarter. So I'm just going to get right to it. I want you to understand the numbers. So what is the expectation for the earning report that we're going to have today on October 25th? The earnings per share expectation is 2.31, which means that if their earnings per share is actually less than expected, then most likely we could expect Microsoft to drop. Their expectation for revenue is $49.7 billion. Now, of course, if they come in lower than expected, then we can expect the market to drop. If we come in higher than expected, we could expect the market to rise. Now, what happens if one is better than expected and one is worse than expected? We've seen things like this. I want to use Snapchat as an example where, again, it's not always so much on the idea of how they report earnings, but a big part of it on how the stock decides to move is based off of its guidance, because yeah, they reported their previous earnings, but what's to come in the up and coming quarters, right? What do they have in store? And looking at Snapchat's earnings were not far off, right? Their earnings per share, if I'm not mistaken, was actually pretty solid. So you can see their earnings per share that was just reported 5 days ago. Their earnings per share came in 1,000% higher than expected, and their revenue kind of was barely a miss. It was a miss by 0.92%. But guess what happened to the stock? It dropped 30%. It was one of the biggest drops that Snapchat has experienced in its lifetime, right? And again, this is a great example of the cheap can always get cheaper. But then you also have companies such as Netflix that report earnings and then they gapped up. If I'm not mistaken, Netflix, when it reported earnings, it gapped up about 13% and has been on a steady rise ever since then. So I think that's the great thing about this, is that you can never predict the future. Our job is simply to prepare for it. I just want to make sure that you are aware of what's the expectation that the market has for these quarterly earnings. Now that we talked about Microsoft, I want to talk about Alphabet. So looking at Alphabet, the earnings per share expectation for this is 1.26, my apologies, 1.26, and the revenue expectation is 70.66 billion. Now again, just like we talked about before, if Google ends up reporting better than expected, then we should possibly see the market rise, right? And if you look at Google's market cap, let's go ahead and bring it up. So this one should be ticker symbol, GOOGL. So let me go ahead and pull this one up. This one has a market cap of 1.36 trillion. So some of you guys might be wondering, I get this, right? That you guys are maybe a little bit newer to the market. You might be like, Ricky, why are you talking so much about quarterly earnings? Like, why does it even matter that much? It doesn't always matter when other companies, there's hundreds of companies that are reporting earnings every single week as of right now. We're entering earnings season. It's not so much about all these other companies, right? It's about these. It's about the ones that have the most influence, the most weight on the overall market. Because if a company like Google or a company like Microsoft either sets very bad expectations and or reports very poor earnings, it could bring down the market. It can not only cause that stock to sell off, but because of its market cap, it can bring down or it can bring up the entire market as a whole. Apple is notorious for this. Apple has such a large market cap, one of the largest of any company that's publicly traded. And depending on how its earnings report is, it can shift the overall market. There's times that, Apple is having a bull run, and because of how bullish Apple is, it can bring up the entire market. And this is why it's so important. It's important to be aware, not just because, you might not even be invested in companies like Microsoft or like Google, but based off of what they report and what their guidance is, it can cause the market to shift. And I think this is why it would be of value for you, especially if you're invested in anything tech. And I just want to make sure, again, I do my part in making you aware of what the market currently has factored in. And yeah, I mean, that's what I just wanted to make sure that I cover in this video. Overall NASDAQ market, we are far in the green, a little bit more on the overbought side, but very, very bullish. This is something that we haven't seen in quite some time. The market, in my opinion, again, it's just my opinion, so don't think anything of it, is super bullish right now. And it looks like it's trying to factor in, that it's going to be positive. I mean, it's very overbought. I was talking to my LPP team, right, during today's live trading session. I was like, this thing is so overbought that I don't really want to jump into this, right? Especially with earnings coming up right when the market closes, especially if you're under the PDT rule. Why not maybe save your day trade and or be selective, right? I'm trying to hit my overall monthly goal. And I just don't want to jump into something where the risk to reward ratios are not in my favor. And I'm choosing to hold back, but it is so bullish. So if the earning reports are anything of what the market thinks it's going to be, it will most likely be bullish. But if it's anything less of what the market is factoring in right now, then we can expect a big correction because of how much it's gapped up not only today, but also yesterday, if you guys remember this big shift, right? So 2 solid days for the overall NASDAQ market. I'm very, very impressed. If we step back and look at the 30-minute time frame, we are approaching early October highs, so it's good to be aware of that for QQQ. You can see the previous resistance level here. We're approaching that same general range for the NASDAQ QQQ. So my job is just to make you aware of these levels. You don't have to do anything of it. I just like to make you aware of what the market is currently factoring in, the different economic reports, and as well as where the market currently sits right before these big earning reports are about to come out. So that's really it for me today. I'm going to be hosting again that live session when Microsoft and Google report earnings. If you want to tune on into it, all you literally have to do is subscribe to my channel and drop a thumbs up, and it's free, right? So I really do appreciate you guys' time. Hope that it earned a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. If you have any questions, I hope that you guys know that you can always reach out to me via Discord, and that's that first link in the description. And if you want to watch me trade live every morning right at market open, I only exclusively do this with my Learn Plan Profit group. So again, the only thing that I offer, if you want to work with me on a closer basis, or if you want to watch me trade live every day, it's my Learn Plan Profit group, and that's that second link down below. I really do appreciate you guys' time. Hope that we earned your thumbs up. Like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take it easy, team.